As widely expected, the Bank of Korea on Thursday decided to leave its key interest rate as it is at 2.5%. The central bank also revised up its economic growth outlook for the country this year by 0.1 percentage point to 0.9%. For more, we have our economic correspondent Park Jun-han here in the studio. Welcome back, Jun-han.
It's great to be here again, Dami.
So, Jun-han, let's start with the central bank's key interest rate decision earlier this morning. Another rate freeze, right?
Right, Dami. So the central bank announced a continued rate freeze of the country's base interest rate at 2.5% on Thursday morning, after cutting the rate by 25 basis points in May and holding it steady in July. Let's take a listen to Bank of Korea Governor Chang-yong's reason for why he and his agency decided to maintain the base rate.
It's true that an economic stimulus is needed at this point. However, considering the risks, a rapid interest rate cut could bring side effects, such as a hike in real estate prices and increasing household debt that, together with structural challenges, would outweigh the positive impact of boosting the economy.
After the decision, the interest rate gap between South Korea and the U.S. stayed at around 2 percentage points, as the Federal Reserve also kept rates unchanged in late July, citing inflation concerns amid uncertainty from U.S. tariffs. The professor of business also claimed that there was no hurry for decision makers at the bank to lower the interest rate before the U.S. does. Let's listen.
There's no reason for the BOK to make the rate cut decision earlier than the U.S. Fed decision, due to the foreign exchange volatility. Most experts are expecting the rate cut in October. After U.S. Fed decision, Jerome Powell signaled there might be some chances of a base rate cut of the U.S. in next meeting, the September meeting.
So there is no reason for the central bank to rush for a rate cut for now. Also today, the BOK raised the country's GDP growth forecast for the first time in almost 2 years, didn't it?
That's right, Dami. On the same day, the bank modestly increased its 2025 GDP growth forecast to 0.9%. This is the first time the BOK has raised its growth forecast in nearly 2 years after having continuously lowered it since November 2023. This is what Governor Chang-yong had to say about the revised forecast for the country's GDP forecast.
Domestically, the economic outlook has shown some improvement. While sluggish construction investment continues to weigh on domestic demand, private consumption has maintained its upward trend since June, supported by the supplementary budget and improving economic sentiment. Exports, despite U.S. tariff hikes, have also posted stronger than expected growth, led by semiconductors and automobiles.
In its outlook, the BOK forecast the country's quarterly growth at minus 0.2% for the first quarter, 0.6% for the second, 1.1% for the third, and 0.2% for the fourth. When asked about the feasibility of achieving a GDP growth rate of 1% in 2025, Lee Ji-ho, Director General of the Research Department at the Bank of Korea's Economic Statistics Department, stressed that it's still achievable.
Achieving 1% range is still possible if growth reaches 0.9% this year. Even a change in the second decimal place would bring it to 1%. We expect a significant rebound in growth during the third quarter, and we will need to see whether the rebound exceeds our expectations. By around November, we should be able to provide a clearer assessment.
It's good to hear that 1% growth rate is still realizable. We are still in August. Jun-han, now, what did the central bank have to say about how the U.S. tariffs might affect South Korean economy?
All right, Dami. So although the institution projected a higher growth rate, the looming risks from U.S. tariff still lie ahead. Despite reducing the level of uncertainties after South Korea and the U.S. negotiated the rates at 15% on July 30th, the overall economic impact could come later. According to the BOK report on the impact of U.S. tariffs on South Korea's economy, they could cut 0.45 percentage points of GDP growth in 2025 and 0.6 percentage points in 2026 compared to a scenario where there were no tariffs. The report also noted that South Korea's high dependence on U.S. exports makes the country particularly vulnerable to the U.S. tariffs. It said While initial impacts have been muted by delays and cost absorption by firms, economic conditions could get worse with global manufacturing orders already contracting.
All right, Jun-han, thanks for that coverage tonight.
Hope to see you again soon, Dami.